welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Turn the Page. I'm your host today, Jen, and today I am joined by the author of an absolutely delightful book about dogs and dog parks. I was once a great student of dog parks, and so it was really fun to spend time in this novel, sort of exploring their cultures and their hierarchies again. And I'm so excited for this conversation. So welcome. Could I ask you to introduce yourself and your book, please?
Hi, I'm Camille Perri. I'm the author of The Assistants and When Katie Met Cassidy and my new novel, Social Animals, and I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you so much for making the time and for sharing your book. And, I did mention the dogs up front. It's about so much more than that. But, my first question is obviously about dogs. And I'm sure it's one that you have gotten many times with this book. But is this, in fact, your dog on the cover?
It's based on my dog. So the story of the cover started out as there's a badly behaved dog at the center of the book, and that dog is a breed called a Brussels Griffon, which is the same breed of dog that I got that kind of inspired the book. When I was submitting the novel to my agent the first time that she was going to read the pages, I thought it would be funny if I included a cover page on the PDF of my dog, because if you've ever seen a Brussels Griffon, they've got very pouty faces. They're always looking very grumpy. And I thought that really suited the book, and I thought it would give her a laugh. So when I sent her the pages, that was on there, and she got a real kick out of it. And what ended up happening is when we were going to submit the novel to publishers, she said, "You know what? Let's keep that on there." I think, it's not, rule of thumb is like if you're submitting a manuscript, you don't want any bells and whistles. You want to look very professional, very serious. But she was like, "Let's do it." And I'm like, "All right, let's leave it on there." And everyone, of course, really got a kick out of that. I thought it was super funny. So when it was time to publish the book, everyone at the publishing house at Putnam sort of knew what my dog looked like because of that photo. And we thought that was a great jumping off point for the cover. But what they ended up doing was they brought in an artist to sort of do various sketches of different renditions of the dog. And this was the one that we landed on, which is technically a long-haired Griff. My Pip is a short-haired Griff, so she does look a little bit different, but the pouty face is the same.
The pouty face is really it beautifully encapsulates the soul of the dog, I think, in this story. It's a great eye-catching cover and very, very endearing. So now that I've gotten that very obvious question out of the way, let's return to your career, if we may, and your journey as a writer, your other works, which you mentioned. And I understand that you also once worked in libraries. I'd love to know about that role in your journey.
Oh yeah, it's a huge part of my life and the part of my journey. I started working in libraries in high school as library page at the East Meadow Library, which is where I grew up in East Meadow. And I had that job for a bunch of years. I loved that job. If I could go back and do that job over and earn enough money to earn my keep, I would do it. I loved shelving books. It really satisfied me. I was a page for a number of years, and actually what made me want to be a page and even put the idea in my head was that my mom at the time she did payroll for the Jericho Public Library, which is another public library on Long Island. And she knew I wanted to be a writer, and she was like, "Hey, this is a great job for anyone who really wants to be a writer because you're surrounded by books all the time and you love to read and you'd be great at this." And so she encouraged me when I was old enough to get a job. I had my work license and whatnot to go try to get a job at the library. So that's how I ended up first getting my foot in the door at the East Meadow Library. And then, of course, I got the bug that many of us get when we work in libraries and we decide that we want to be librarians when we grow up. So I ended up I was an English major in college, and I went straight to library school at Queens College after after undergrad, and I was a librarian trainee at East Meadow the whole time that I was in library school, and then I was promoted after graduating to a reference librarian there. I worked as a reference librarian there for a number of years, and I also, for a while, worked at the Great Neck Library as a reference librarian as well.
Wow. I really love two things about libraries. One, they birth many great authors and creatives. And two is that they often are sort of not a plan B, I don't want to say, but like they're often a place that people kind of fall into. Like I felt like I fell into libraries after, finishing a PhD that I didn't really think I wanted to do anything with anymore. So I love like that people come to libraries with very different experiences and skill sets and perspectives. They're really interesting places in that way. So.
Oh, I totally agree. And I always kind of thought of it as like it's almost like a trade in a way because if you wanted to, you could kind of once you have the skill set and the training, you can do it anywhere. Like you can move around. You could move to another state and be a librarian there, and it's pretty much the same kind of gig. And yeah, I felt like there was something really hands-on about it that I liked. It's not like a theoretical job, you're in there every day with the public and you're active, and a lot of that really appealed to me.
Hmm. So I understand as well from your website that you went to NYU, which I did as well. And I wonder what role that played apart from your own dog. I almost said dog owner, and I apologize.
That's
Friend and
okay.
ally and mother to dogs. What role did NYU play in that sort of like interest in dog parks? Because so much of my degree was spent like just walking over to dog parks to de-stress and just watch dogs interact and they're very interesting owners.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. This is less true on Long Island, I think, because you would need to drive to a dog park to just kind of stand outside and watch the dogs if you're not yourself a dog's human. We're going to say a dog's human, not to say
There we
dog owner, to anyone who's confused by that language. But in the city, it's a walking culture. So there's a lot of times you're going to be walking along and you'll pass a dog park. And there's actually a dog park in Washington Square Park, which is right on NYU's main campus. And so one of the things you do is if you don't necessarily have a dog, but you like dogs, or even if you don't, they're super entertaining. Even if you're not a dog person, people sit and watch dogs in dog parks in the city all the time because it's very fun to watch the interaction between all the different dogs. So that's something that I was doing for years before I actually got my dog. And the truth is, I didn't even really want a dog when we got our dog. My wife really wanted the dog. But one of the things that we used to do in the city was, sometimes on the weekends, we'd go for breakfast and we'd get bagels and coffee, and then we'd stop at the dog park and drink our coffee watching the dogs at the dog park. So I think she kind of knew I had a soft spot that she'd one day be able to capitalize on, which she did.
So let's then talk about Val, Alex, and June. I would love to know how about developing their characters and their perspectives. And the part B of that, I guess that we can get to after, is matching them to their dogs and what sort of like human dog personality combinations you felt like were necessary for their journeys.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I definitely did think very long and hard about what kind of dog each character would have or should have. So Val, Alex, and June are all very different sort of personalities. But one thing that unifies them is they're all a little bit lonely, and they're not in a position right now in their lives where they have a lot of friends or that they're necessarily connecting well with others. So that was sort of fertile ground for them to sort of come together and in ways that created a little bit of friction. So Val and Alex don't get along at first. June is there at the dog park, and she's married to this guy Silas, who's not really the best husband. And Silas has hired Val who's a PI, to spy on June to see if she's having an affair behind his back. But June doesn't know that, and Alex is there with some secrets of her own, but Val and June don't know that. So they've all kind of got things that they're hiding or not saying. Um, and despite all of that, they're gonna end up becoming friends. They're gonna end up connecting. But I thought that gave me a lot of it gave me a long road to sort of examine a lot of the intricacies of each of their characters through their relationships with one another.
the sort of like I do the meet cutes, of all of these people coming together in the park. I really love how nuanced they are as characters and how it sort of feels like the protagonists of like three different genres, novel genres, coming together to sort of meet in this dog park with their like intersecting stories and very different objectives and some and different kinds of secrets. It's really funny to see like their personalities and their stories mash up in that way in the entirely like chaotic environment of the dog park. Did you spend a lot of time, returning to them and observing them? Because there's good dog watching, obviously, but there's also really good people watching in dog parks too.
Well, you're not kidding. I mean, the first time I went to a dog park, I didn't really know what to expect. Like the first time I brought my dog to a dog park, where I was actually a participant with a dog in the dog park, I was blown away by how you get all different sorts of people who, under any other circumstances, would probably not be mixing socially. Like if you go to a cafe or if you go to a bar or if you go to a restaurant, a lot of times you're mixing with people very much like yourself. A dog park is interesting because the only thing anyone needs to have in common is that they've got a dog with them. So you get all different sorts of people interacting with one another. And again, there's a lot of potential for friction there, right? But what I found what was interesting was, there's politics within a dog park and there's gossip and there's cliques and all of those things that you look forward to watching your favorite television show. When we were living in Maryland at the time when we got Pip, and we were became regulars very quickly at the local dog park in Rockville, Maryland. And we would go at 5:30 every night, and I would look forward to it all day long. This was during COVID restrictions, so there was I didn't have a lot of social interaction myself with others, so I would really look forward to it. But I looked forward to it the way one looks forward to a favorite TV show, because I was beginning to learn who all the characters were and what their deal was, what their vibe was. There was this one guy who was super mysterious and kind of handsome, and he kind of stuck by himself. And we were in the Maryland, close to DC, and so there's a lot of people who work for government around that area. And I was like, do you think he's a spy? Do you think he works for the CIA? Who is this mysterious figure? So it really sets the imagination alight.
Hmm. And it's really, an interesting type of people watching because you're in a public place and, generally people are aware of being viewable and viewed. But because they're also interacting with like loved, beloved creatures, and like members of their family, you get to see like very vulnerable, private moments too. And there's a lot of that like in this book too. I think there's like in the strange social dynamics of the dog parks, and especially, there's a point at which they start to try to, come together to get some improvements for the park. Just seeing the weird hierarchies and grudges and resentments and, brewing friendships and all that. It's a really interesting mix.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I tried to depict my personal life experience at the dog park as well as I could in the book. I did kind of heighten things a bit, and I wanted to I set the book in Bethesda, Maryland, which is not where I had lived. I had lived in Rockville, but I liked the idea of Bethesda because it's a slightly affluent community, and I thought that people kind of know Bethesda. They're familiar with it as a place. And I liked the idea of being able to sort of poke a little bit of fun at myself and others like me who treat their dogs like they're little babies, which, let it be said, you have to have achieved a certain level of privilege in your life to be able to treat your dog that way. And I wanted that awareness to kind of be in there for my main characters, but not necessarily for some of the other secondary characters. I wanted them to maybe have a little less self-awareness. So there is a little bit of satire going on in the book, but it's all with heart and with love. It's not a mean book by any means. And I'm definitely, I mean, my dog is at daycare right now so that I could be doing this podcast, or otherwise she'd be bugging me. So I'm someone who sends my dog to daycare. So, I mean, come on.
And I love that because it is great for satire. It's very rife for it because you see a lot of like very human foibles. But it is on that same token like very humanizing for people who you might want to judge at first or, frankly be jealous of or envy or. So I think it's a really it is loving, in the gaze that it turns onto this community. Yeah.
I'm glad that came across.
So turning to the more directly to the human relationships, I really love what the book has to say about friendship and how it develops. I think especially, well, I think the few years post-COVID context is absolutely crucial, as you were kind of mentioning before, but also as you get past your school years and stuff like that, and you're not just like spending unstructured time around other people and you don't have as many opportunities to make friends. I really enjoyed watching like the friendship journey of these people who were pretty lonely, but get to come together and it's not always like, instant friendship. There are some bumps along the way, but it's a really, I think, loving and accurate depiction of what it is, the vulnerability of trying to make friends when you're an adult.
It's tough making friends as an adult, I think. Especially I think one shortcut to making friends is if you work in real life in a building or an office or a library and you can make friends through work or at least coworkers that you enjoy if they don't cross into real friendship. Um, but post-COVID, a lot of us are working hybrid schedules. A lot of people are still working from home. Things kind of changed a little bit. So you don't always have the shortcut to friendship via your work friends. So I think it's been an especially unique challenge. Like, I think it's a timely challenge. And I remember when the Surgeon General came out with a little bit after COVID that saying he came out with a report that said loneliness is an epidemic and it's actually more dangerous to your health than smoking, because social isolation can really lead to all of these not only emotional sort of things but also physical ailments. It's scientifically proven that we are social animals as human beings. We need other people, and if we become isolated and we become lonely, we become sick essentially. So that was very much on my mind when I was writing this book. And I wanted to sort of put that sentiment in there. And like I myself, I'm an introvert. I'm if I'm sad, I'm the first thing I do is withdraw and isolate. And I wanted to sort of put that in my characters a little bit because a lot of times, if you're a shy person, you don't want to not be connecting with others, but it's a real challenge. It's very hard. It's hard to do. And you may feel lonely, but you don't know how to reach out and connect and to feel better. So I've struggled with a lot of that in my own life. So I wanted that to be sort of the vulnerability, as you said, that's in there.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that, even though some of these characters have like secrets with a capital S, I think it still does like very accurately depict like that any relationship, platonic, romantic, or what have you, has at least two phases. And there's the one where like everybody's on their best behavior because they're excited about having a new friend and they are, in the joyous part where you're connecting and you're like, oh, this is great. And then like there's the part where like the human vulnerabilities and flaws and things come up and like relationships are like renegotiated after that. And I think that, even though we have like some high stakes drama here for sure, it's still an accurate it still accurately kind of depicts that feeling of, the initial rush of connection and then the sort of like the fear and vulnerability too.
Oh, good. Yeah. I wanted people to I wanted readers of the book to see themselves mirrored back in a sense. I mean, not everyone will, of course, but maybe someone who's drawn to the book and reads the back cover and then reads the first chapter in the store and decides to take it home. Like I wanted that person to be able to identify to a certain extent with the characters.
So what is next for you? Are you writing anything right now? I know you're probably busy, with this book on the horizon, but what is in the future for you?
I am working on something. I'm working on a new novel, but it is very early stages. I'm not ready to really talk about it, but I'm super excited about it, and I think that's what I'll be working on once this. I'm not really hitting my writing hours right now because there is a lot of stuff to do in the lead up to a book coming out, publicity and podcasts and things like that. So
Thanks.
I'm not getting my writing hours in, but once the book is out and life settles back into life again, I will be writing and writing and writing, and hopefully it will be something that will my publishers will like and will want to publish, and I'll absolutely let you know if I sell that next book.
Yay. Well, good luck and thank you. And I do that. I often think of that with the writer's life and how sort of fascinating that is that to your earlier points about introversion and shyness, that part of the job is so isolating where you're literally alone with your own thoughts in a room trying to get them out. And then the other is so high profile where you are, you know, asking people to buy your book and describing it to people and trying to persuade them. And that's got to be whiplash.
Oh, you hit the nail on the head. It is total whiplash. Because yeah, I mean, I chose this job because I'm shy and I like to be quiet and I like to be left alone. And yeah, I'm not someone who loves to like ask people for stuff. And like here I am, like I've got to go on social media and be like, buy my book, pre-order my book, like doing a dance and jazz hands every day. And it's so not natural to me at all.
Well, then, especially thank you for your time and talking to me about this lovely book that I cannot wait to recommend to folks here.
Well, thank you so much for your thoughtful questions. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And thank you, listeners, for joining us. Please check out Social Animals. By the time that you hear this, it will be out in the world. So you can head to your favorite bookstore or library website, wherever you like to go for your books. All right, everyone. It is now time to close this chapter. We'll see you next time.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.